Hey everybody, it's Eric from EPautos.com, your libertarian car guy. Just going to give you a quick scan here of this 2025 Infiniti QX80's dashboard from my crappy camera. I'm sorry for the haze, and I apologize for the low techness of my videos. I am trying to get a better camera and figure out how to use it. The one I got is a little awkward to use. It cuts off the feed, I guess, after about 2 or 3 minutes of talking, and then I have to splice the sections together, which is annoying. And I'm just trying to figure out how to get one that, I push the on button, it stays on until I turn it off. I don't like all these helperson things that they have added to technology, but didn't really want to talk about that. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. The first is, if you caught my article about the QX, which has been revised for 25, you'll know that it no longer comes standard with the 5.6 liter V8. It's been replaced by a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, which is more powerful significantly by about 50 horsepower. However, there's not really any fuel economy benefit, which I thought was interesting, and I wrote a whole article about that because we're told by the government, that essentially it's so important to get better gas mileage that we have to force the manufacturers to produce engines that get better gas mileage. And what ends up happening is that they put smaller engines into bigger vehicles, and these smaller engines typically have to be turbocharged in order for them to produce the kind of power that's necessary to move a big vehicle. And of course that adds to the expense and complexity of the vehicle. So I don't know whether the trade-off is worth it. This thing has got good power. I'm not going to fault it in any way. If I have an opportunity here to pull a passing maneuver, I will do so to show you that this huge, heavy, hulking, I think 5,000 something, 600, maybe even 5,600 pound full-size three-row SUV jumps forward almost as forcefully as my Trans Am that weighs, I don't know, probably 2,000 pounds less. So here we go. I'm going to pass this minivan. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. And it even sounds good. Now, I don't know whether the sound is augmented. A lot of these newer vehicles that have the smaller engines that used to have V8s have what they call sound augmentation technology, by which is meant they pipe sounds that make it sound like you've got a bigger engine under the hood into the car. So no complaints about the performance, no complaints certainly about the power. I just wonder whether and why it is being done other than in the sense of compliance. And if you're interested in more about that, there is the article up on the site that you can read about. Love to hear your comments about that. The other thing is news that I just got from Toyota about the next generation RAV4, which is, of course, I think Toyota's currently best-selling model. It used to be the Camry. The Camry's not selling as well any longer because it's a car, and people tend not to buy cars anymore. And the RAV has been around for a long time. My girlfriend has a RAV. They're very popular with good reason. They used to be a lot more interesting because you used to be able to get them with manual transmissions. You even used to be able to get it with a V6. I know that in our current times that seems almost unimaginable. Well, back to the news. The news is apparently that the 26 models are going to come only in electric and partially electric variants, meaning hybrids and electric. And no more gas engine only. And that too is in keeping with the trend. If you look at, the Camry is now hybrid only. If you look at its main rival, the Honda Accord, it too comes with a hybrid drivetrain. Both those cars used to be available with V6 engines and 4-cylinder engines that weren't hybridized. And again, the question comes up, why? Why are they doing this? And the only reason is, in my opinion, because of the pressure of compliance. Trump may be the president, but the EPA is still demanding that new vehicles average 35.5 miles per gallon, which is extremely difficult to do with an engine that's larger than 2 liters. And also that they have a smaller carbon footprint, because carbon dioxide is such a terrible thing. And the only way realistically to do that, other than making engines smaller, is to turn the engines off or get rid of them altogether. So of course in a hybrid, what you've got is a vehicle where the engine is cycled off as often as feasible. For example, when the car rolls up to a stoplight and you're just idling, quote unquote. Also when you're decelerating and your foot's off the accelerator pedal, they shut the engine off, and that's the way that they achieve compliance. And I guess that's fine as far as it goes, but you know, you're paying for that. The sticker price of the vehicle goes up, and it's not because the car companies are malicious or trying to gouge you. It's because they can't do this stuff for free. And adding a hybrid system to a car means more parts, more complexity, and you're paying for that. And okay, you get better gas mileage. Well, is that offset by the higher cost of the vehicle? You know, look at the current hybrid version of the Camry as a case in point. I don't have the numbers at hand exactly, but I think the base price of the Camry now is about $27,000. It might be $28,000. But it's several $1,000s higher now than it was when you could get it with just a base 4-cylinder engine without any hybrid stuff. So let's say the difference is $3,000 or $4,000. How long are you going to have to drive before you hit the break-even point with that? And then down the road, potentially, I know these things are generally pretty reliable, but again, the odds of something going awry increase with complexity. The more parts you have, the more failure points that you have. So at some point, potentially, you're going to have to deal with repairing or even replacing some of these components. And how much is that going to cost? As an example, replacing the hybrid battery in a hybrid, typically about $1,000, maybe $1,500, depending on the vehicle. Not a huge expense, but also not a nothing expense either. So, you add that to the cost of the vehicle itself, and you're really probably not saving a whole lot. And there's a final, subtler compounding factor, which is you're going to be paying more for insurance when you buy one of these cars. And again, I despise the insurance mafia because it uses force to compel people to buy what it offers. But in this case, I will defend the insurance mafia because your premium, what you're paying to cover the car, is based on the replacement cost of the car. So if you buy a hybrid that costs $28,000, let's say, versus a non-hybrid that costs $23,000, that $5,000 difference is going to be reflected in the cost of your premium. So that's another cost you have to factor into the ownership costs of the vehicle. Anyway, just wanted to get into those two things today. More up at EPautos.com, the web's best libertarian gearhead site. Thanks as always for listening, and hope you'll stop by the site and leave some comments for me. And if you have any questions, please ask. I'm happy to answer them, and we will have more for you again soon.